Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our virtual event discussing diversity groups at Wharton. We're delighted you could join us as we discuss the student experience at Wharton. My name is Adisa. I'm the co-president of Alpha-Biz, and I will be your host today. There are so many things to consider when applying to and choosing a business school. When I was applying, I knew I wanted a richness of diversity in the student body where I could be challenged to grow in so many dimensions. I wanted that diversity of thought, of prior experience, and cultural background. Today, we're joined by Admissions Committee member Danielle DeShields, who will be behind the scenes during today's virtual event and will be answering your submitted questions throughout the next hour. I'm also joined today by a number of second years that I'm privileged to call my friends. They are an incredible set of student leaders on campus that care deeply about the Wharton community. They will be fielding your questions and should provide a broad mix of experiences. I'm going to let everyone on the panel introduce themselves, and then we'll dig into your questions.
Thanks, Adiza. My name is Nam Huynh. I'm a second year. I'm the co-president of the Wharton Asian American Association of MBAs, also known as WAM.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tola. I am a second year, and I am the president of the Wharton African Students Association, also known as WASA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Macias, and I'm the co-president of the Wharton Hispanic MBA Association, or WAMBA.
My name is Joe Canal. I'm the internal vice president for the African American MBA Association, or AMBA.
Thank you, guys. Today, we'll be speaking about how diversity plays a role in student life, academics, and the application path to Wharton. We'll then open it up to questions from all of you watching at home. Let's start with student life. Joe, what is student life like at Wharton?
In a word, I'd say it's wonderful. In another word, I'd say it's fully customizable. And so for that reason, it makes it a little bit difficult to answer. I'd say that you can really divide up student life into really three different areas. I'd say there's the professional, the academic, and then the social element of the experience here. And I'd say that it's customizable because you can really you can really prioritize them really however you'd like. And for me, I'd say that one of the most important components of student life here has been AMBA. AMBA is really the center of life here for me, and I'd say that's true for a lot of other folks who are in different cultural organizations. They're very supportive in all three of those the components of the experience that I mentioned, and it certainly enhances the experience here. So student life here, I'd say, is diverse, it's wonderful, and it's very social.
Tola, will you speak to us about some of your favorite aspects of student life?
Sure. So to Joe's point, I think it is very customizable. Coming here, I know that I really wanted to be heavily involved in the African Students Association, and so I was a member in my first year, and this year I'm president, and I've just enjoyed really being able to bring more of African culture and African knowledge onto campus. Have obviously been supported by a great team, but I've really enjoyed that process. The other aspect of student life that I love is really getting to meet a rich, diverse set of people, and I've been able to do that through travel, which is a great part of the Wharton experience through GMCs, GIPs, et cetera, and just through more intimate events like dinners and activities on campus.
Thank you, Tola. Eric, can you speak about how you adjusted to the broader Wharton community and what advice you can offer prospective students as they take advantage of the Wharton experience?
Yeah, absolutely. In many ways, I think that Wharton is kind of like a candy shop. There are so many different flavors, and you have a craving for all of them. So I think coming in, it's very important just to have your priorities very clearly defined. For me, I know that I had two. One was around really developing my analytical and strategic skills, and the second around developing a strong network. And for me, that resides in WAMBA. So I've been able to not only get a lot of resources and support to really further my career, but also to look for social impact opportunities, which is where the sector that eventually I'd like to be in.
Thank you, Eric. That's a really good point. I know from my own experience, Alpha-Biz has really been a very important part of my life here. Not just because I'm president this year, but because it's where I've met some of my closest friends. And also because I've been part of this huge network. Alpha-Biz has over 800 members at Wharton. It's one of the biggest LGBTQ and ally groups on any MBA campus. And so I'm really proud of that and really excited to be part of that. And to me, it has been a really important part as well of my experience. So Nam, outside of academics, how do you spend your time?
Oof, that's a loaded question. So especially this year, I spent a lot of my time for WHAM. As a co-president, you have to really oversee a lot of different initiatives going on across the organization, from hosting clubbing events for across the schools, to hosting events for all of Wharton, to hosting banquets, to small group dinners, to recruiting prep dinners, to various things, all while kind of managing a budget for your organization, making sure board members are motivated, and making sure members are happy. So that's a lot of stuff. That's a big undertaking as a co-president this year. And in addition to that, it's going to dinners and grabbing drinks with friends, and traveling. That's actually a huge part of our school. We weekend trips are traveling and learning about other cultures and other countries. So a lot of what you learn is obviously in the classrooms from each other, but a lot of it, most of it, or actually the most rewarding experiences for me is you learn professionally and personally from each other outside the academics.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit more about academics at Wharton and what resources we have access to as students. I know, for example, for me, one of my favorite classes is my Advanced Entrepreneurship course. I came to Wharton wanting to start a business, and this course has really supported that process for me. Every Monday and Wednesday, we work with our professor on our pitch, on our business plan, and he makes an effort to bring in VCs, different investors, and so we get this opportunity to really be exposed through that class to an insane community of entrepreneurs that are so supportive to us, and he has been really close to us and really coaching us through that process. So Joe, can you speak a little bit about how supportive you have found the Wharton community, students, faculty, and administrators to diversity-related topics?
Sure. I'd say that I can't emphasize enough exactly how supportive the community here at Wharton is of diversity-related topics. I think one of the best examples is from last night. Last night, the India Club hosted a Diwali celebration, which was attended by a ton of people, most of whom were not Indian or Indian Americans. I'd say that Adisa, you can speak to that. Alfred Biz, one of the biggest events on campus every single year is the White Party hosted by Alfred Biz, probably the most well-attended event. And I'd say that's true for a lot of the cultural organizations on campus. They're very supportive of each other. They attend each other's events. It's a very, very, very supportive community.
So we know as students that the transition into business school, the business school environment is exciting, but also anxiety-producing. You'll be exposed to a wide range of academic topics, social groups, and ideas. Of course, the diversity of thought and opinion doesn't end in the classroom door either. I would love to hear from our panelists a little bit further on diversity at Wharton. And so, Tola, what diversity-related events or initiatives have you participated in at Wharton?
Sure, that's a good question. So one of the hats I wear on campus is the VP of International Student Affairs on WGA, which is our student body government. And in that position, I've really tried to bring expose Wharton to the diversity of cultures that are in our student body. One of the events we had was Storytellers, which is a story slam, and that one was dedicated specifically to international students. And we had students from almost every region stand on stage in front of their peers and tell their stories. And there were such fascinating things that came out. There was a student who talked about the culture shock she felt coming into the United States, but made jokes about all of the different experiences that she had. And it was just a way, I think, for her to share her experiences with her classmates through humor. And it was something that the whole crowd enjoyed, and something that we'll continue to do in future years.
Yeah, thank you. Eric, could you speak on what the Return on Equality Coalition is and what impact it has had on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. The Return on Equality Coalition is a collection of 5 student groups on campus with the full support of the administration. So we bring together thought leaders from our Hispanic community, but also our African American, the Wharton Women in Business, our Alpha Business as well, which is our LGBT organization on campus. And it's really an opportunity for us to raise opportunities for discussion and dialogue about diversity and inclusion, especially right now in this time of Missouri and Yale. There are so many examples where universities are really struggling with how to approach these important topics. And here we have the full support of the administration behind us in funding many of these opportunities. Yesterday, we actually had an event with the Wharton Women in Business with the foremost male feminist in the nation, and he gave just a very well-attended conversation about gender.
Thank you. Joe, could you offer up some info on support and resources that are available to you on campus?
Yeah, I can't, again, emphasize enough the role of the clubs. So I'll speak to it personally. I mean, with AMBA, they really touch on each of the 3 pillars I mentioned before. When it comes to professional, academic, social, they support you in every single one of those components. And that's true, I believe, of all of the cultural organizations and diversity groups on campus. You know, with regard to help professionally, they do a ton around helping people recruit for whatever industry they're interested in. From an academic perspective, they hold review sessions with students or PhD students on different subjects for midterms and finals. From a social perspective, that's probably the biggest and easiest one. But that's just the cultural organizations. I'd say that there are other opportunities, there are other resources as well. We have a program that I'm a part of called the Leadership Fellow program here, where every first-year student has a leadership fellow who can help them through whatever challenges they're facing, whether that be academic, you know, sort of interpersonal, you know, social, really anything. And there's also the Student Life Fellows, which is another resource that every single first-year student has to help them through the adjustment to business school as well. So there's certainly no shortage, because that's a very short list of a much longer list of potential resources. But yeah, there's plenty out there.
That is definitely true. That is definitely true. There's a long list. I know I was in shock when I saw this huge packet of student clubs. It was like over 100 clubs in a pack. I was like, wow, there's so much here that we can take advantage of. So that's definitely true. Okay, so we've shared quite a bit about the school and our experience, student life, academics, all of that. But we know that many people watching today are in the beginning stages of their business school search process. So I would love to get everyone's thoughts on why Wharton was the best fit for you. And so let's just start with Nam. So each student has their own story on why they decided to apply to business school. So what led you to pursue your MBA?
So I think for me, it was more of like a career transition and like a pivot in my career. And I remember this period was like incredibly reflective for me. You had to really like figure out like what you really want and where you want to take your life. And for me, it was after about 3 to 4 years of working, I saw a lot of my friends going off to business school and like having a great time. And for me, that's when I started really seriously considering applying. And so I was in an internal strategy role within a like a large company. And I mean, I enjoyed it, and I did well enough to get into Wharton, but I just wasn't in love with it. Like, it wasn't my passion, it wasn't my calling. So what I really wanted to do, I've always wanted to do, is something more consumer focused or facing, like product management. And you know, I applied for those jobs, but like I didn't have a technical background, so it was really hard for me to get that position. But I knew that a lot of business schools, a lot of companies recruit from business schools into product management, regardless of background. So I applied, I got in, and that wasn't case closed for me. I had a hard time deciding, based purely like financially, whether or not it was worth it. But having spoken to a lot of like people I trust, and my friends and family, I realized that it was the right decision. And then as of last Friday, I'll graduate and go into product management. So that works.
That resonates very much with me in that process of trying to really understand what we want to do in our path and our career. This is a big deal, and so I'm glad that you share that. So I'll just ask Tola, so what resources did you utilize while preparing for the Wharton application? We know everybody's very excited to get that application in, and so any information or resources on that, it would be great.
Yeah, sure. So at the time that I was applying, I was living in Nigeria, and I made a very conscious effort to reach out to alumni that were in the area and get their thoughts on Wharton and how they felt like I could improve my application. I also reached out to current students, and the clubs were a great way of actually getting access to people. So I remember I reached out to the Wharton African Students Association, and I was able to get in touch with second years at the time who were part of a buddy program, and so there were people that were able to review my essays and give me feedback and tips. So that was really important. But I think it's even in the midst of getting all that feedback, I think it's very important to still tell your own story and be very true to why you want to come to Wharton, and not try and create what you think Wharton wants to see on your application, because I think at the end of the day they're looking for people that are very genuine, and you really want to make that come out in your essays.
I 100% second that. If I had one piece of it, like big piece of advice for everyone, it's to just be yourself. The right school is there for you, you know. We know it's Wharton, so but you know, we want what we want to see, or at least what I know from my experience is that once I just tried to be myself fully in the application, it was much easier to write that essay, to tell my story, because it's just you that you're trying to share with them, and you're just trying to share it in the best way possible. So, you know, try to sort of stick with trying to bring out who you are in those essays, and also, you know, staying confident in that your experience is powerful enough and is going to be important. Okay, so we've now come to the end of the panel portion of the event, but we have a few of our fellow club members who would love to tell you more about their experience as well. Please stay tuned after this short video for answers to the questions that you've been submitting throughout the session. Thank you.
My involvement in WHAM has single-handedly defined my Wharton experience. I've not only formed lifelong friendships through WHAM, but have helped plan events that will be a big part of my classmates' memories from Wharton. For my second year, I wanted to be the co-president of WHAM because I believe being a leader of a social club is one of the best experiences at Wharton. There's no set expectations of what you need to deliver to members, but you learn to be a leader because you care.
To me, Out for Business is really the embodiment of what I think Wharton should be. I see that Wharton should be a place that is welcoming to everyone regardless of race, gender, sexual preference. And Out for Biz has been a really important part of that progress at Wharton. I think more than any other organization I've seen, they don't just make diversity and equality a buzzword or something that they like to talk about, but they take the actions to really make it happen. I've seen them advocate really, really hard for a minority group at Wharton, but I've also seen them be very inclusive to other affinity groups as well as the broader Wharton community. And this happens through ally workshops that they hold, big parties that they throw, educational events for students at Wharton. And I just think that's a really, really great thing that they're doing. And you know, by allowing me to get involved, it's just really been a great experience helping to turn Wharton into what I think it should be and being a big part of that fight.
To me, Out for Business is an awesome group of friends and colleagues. It's an opportunity to connect with people from around the world who've shared similar struggles. And it's a chance to connect with employers who want to make sure that we know that we can come and work for them and it's going to be a safe space. And it's also a huge group of allies, literally hundreds of people who are ready and willing to support the community.
So WASA means a family for me. Coming into Wharton, I definitely wasn't sure what to expect in terms of the relationships that I would build here and connecting with other students, but as soon as I came on campus and met the other first and second year WASA members, I immediately felt welcomed into like a very strong, solid community of people that not only were African, but shared a passion and an interest for Africa, and that's what meant a lot to me, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, and I definitely feel so blessed to have found that community.
WASA means a safe place for me. I mean, Wharton is a phenomenally diverse community that's really made up of students and classmates from every corner of the globe and all walks of life. And as you move in and out of student groups and clubs and activities, it's very easy to develop this double consciousness. WASA is a great place for me to come back and really be myself and really get back in touch with my unique personality, my individuality, and that's what WASA means for me.
So Wharton is an incredible place with a ton of opportunities, to the point where sometimes it can feel overwhelming. I think one of the best aspects of WAMBA is its exposure, its way of bridging ties between the first and second year community, and I've learned a ton from those who have come before me. They have a lot of knowledge to share. Aside from that, I think people have different priorities coming into this experience, whether it's social or professional or academic or what have you, and WAMBA really covers the whole breadth of that spectrum.
Wharton is an amazing community, but there's a lot of us here, and at times that's perfect, but at times you kind of want that smaller community to get closer to. And so WAMBA's been able to provide that to me Also, as a second year, I've been able to be active in the WAMBA board through the VP of Admissions position. And it's great because I'm able to improve the mentorship program that we have with prospective students of color. It's cool to kind of talk to them over the phone as well as read over their essays and resumes to get them the help, in terms of applying to the school.
Everything AMBA does, it does well. All of the programs and all of the support they provide for everyone from academics to recruiting. And the people are wonderful, so I think it's a place that has made Wharton home for me.
Even if it's from home-cooked meals to movie nights to talking about real-life issues that we face daily, it's just nice to have something that no one's judging you, you feel comfortable being yourself. And I love the fact that it's so many other nationalities, not just African American, but everybody from Africans to people like me who are Caribbean or from the islands.
So hello, my name is Danielle DeShields, and I will be the person that's moderating the Q&A section of this event today. We had tons of questions that came in over the internet, and we're going to start off with a question to Eric. Eric, many of you have had several acceptance offers. What drew you to Wharton over other business schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think throughout the business school application process, like Nam said, it's really important to know yourself. And so I knew coming in from an education background with TFA that I really wanted to focus on building on my analytical toolkit. And so here at Wharton, I knew that I would be able to foster that, to take as many classes with leading professors who write the playbooks in finance, in strategic management. And secondly, I also knew that I wanted to find a business school that would be supportive of my identity as a Hispanic American. And so I reached out to many different Hispanic American clubs across other business schools. And I really started filtering down to find the school that was the right fit for me. And here at Wharton, I know that I've been able to not only build out my analytical toolkit, but also creating that sense of community. And then lastly, it's also important to look at the financial aid. I don't come from a family background with lots of money, and so for me it was very important to come to a school that saw this as an investment in me. And so through the Howard Mitchell Fellowship, I'm able to attend business school without having to take extensive loans, and that's incredibly important to me.
That's great. So we also had a lot of questions come in about the career support here. So Joe and Adisa, can you speak to the support your club offers during the job search process?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit during the panel portion, but I'd say that the AMBA was crucial to my job search process. I recruited for consulting, and that was something that there's already sort of a very institutionalized, I guess, machine to help people get into these firms. But the club was very helpful because second-year members, second-year members who had spent their summers or who before business school were in consulting would host case marathons where they would go through the whole interview process, days at a time, of just prepping you for that. And they're also very much available outside of those more organized events. So the club was very, very supportive of its membership for that specifically, and the same is true for other industries, whether it's banking, whether it's consumer products, really anything that you're looking for is fairly well represented, at least within AMBA, and that was I think that's been very, very helpful to my class, and we're now trying to pass that on to the new first-year class, organizing very similar events.
Yeah, I absolutely second that. Alpha Biz was really, really instrumental in helping me through the job search. So right when I started to really try and understand what I wanted to recruit for, I went to Rumba, Reaching Out MBA, and Alpha Biz sponsored, subsidized our trip to Rumba, and they were running panels at the event. And so at Reaching Out MBA, you meet hundreds of companies, and you get exposed to consulting firms, to different consumer firms, just a broad array of companies. And so that's where I made my first banking contacts, was from Alpha Biz sending me to Rumba in San Francisco. So that was incredibly important. And then throughout the process, not just Alpha Biz, but I'm also a member of AMBA, I'm also a member of WAMBA, and both have been, especially the second years last year, were incredibly important in coaching me through I recruited for investment banking. And they were coaching me through the process for interviewing. It's very sort of long and tiresome, and so having that kind of support system that came from the clubs was incredibly important. And then now, currently, as second years, through AMBA, we've created teams that are working on sort of being supportive to those one-wise first years who are recruiting for banking, and teams who are there for the first years who are recruiting for consulting, and teams who are there for the ones that are recruiting for startups. And so we have little teams that are in charge of ensuring that second years are 100% supportive as they want to be and can be through the recruiting process. So definitely the clubs have been incredibly powerful.
Okay, great. So along those lines, Nam and Tola, can you speak to some of the career recruitment events you participated in? And also, how has the many conferences and support from career management helped you grow as a global leader?
Yeah, I can take that first. So I mean, coming here to business school, you're never at a loss for resources. I think the biggest part is actually knowing what works for you, and that could be different for everybody. And I think the biggest things for me was when I first came here, you meet with a career management advisor, and there's advisors for banking, consulting, like various industries. And what I used them for was to, hey, like, I'm interested in this job. Is this right for me? And they see hundreds and thousands of alumni who've gone through, and like they've either liked it or not liked it for certain reasons, so they can kind of like give you that guidance ahead of time. And I think the second biggest, if not the biggest for me, is each other. And I think you have not only you have formal roles where you're reviewing each other's resumes, you have that, but also the jobs that you want. Classmates have either interned there before or they've worked there in previous lives, so it's a huge resource. That's why we come to business school. It's to learn from each other. And that's the biggest thing for me. And of course, the clubs host a lot of events and provide a lot of interview resources and aid and support. And the conferences they host are great too. You meet like great speakers, industry professionals. That's invaluable because you create a lot of connections ahead of time. And I think that's for all those things, I've found the experience here very valuable and it's gotten me where I wanted to get me.
Great. For me, I was recruiting for jobs outside of the United States. So what I found most helpful was the ability to reach out to alumni at the companies and in the countries that I was interested in. And career services definitely helped in facilitating that process. Something else that I found really helpful were the conferences. So I remember last year at the Wharton Africa Business Forum, they had brought in company representatives from companies across Africa, and they arranged coffee chats during the conference. And so the ability to talk to people that were actually working on the ground and get their feedback on what their experience was like and how to apply for these jobs was perhaps the most valuable career resource that I had last year.
Sounds great. So along those same lines, how has your club helped facilitate interactions with alum? We know here at Wharton we have one of the largest business school alum networks with over 93,000 alum. So how have you interacted with them, and how has your clubs helped that out?
Yeah, I'd say the best example of this would really be last weekend, or at least for AMBA, would really be last weekend, which was the Whitney M. Young Conference. The Whitney M. Young Conference is AMBA's annual conference, and it tends to bring a lot of alumni back. Not just alumni who buy their own tickets and come, but alumni who are sponsored by their companies to come. So you really get a chance to connect with a lot of the companies that you want to speak to, get a chance to speak to some other alumni who are doing some, who are later in their careers and have sort of moved on to other very interesting things. So the conference, I'd say, on top of what Tola mentioned, with regard to meeting some of the companies, it also is very, very good at fostering relationships or introducing you to alumni from your network.
We do pretty regular. We do pretty regular events where we co-host events with different alumni that are in different cities. So when Alpha Biz did its retreat, we do an annual retreat to Rehoboth where members come right in the beginning of the year so that we can just start getting to know each other, sort of building our community. And during that retreat, we go, like a ton of alumni come down and they have their own house, and we go and join them. And we met alumni from years back who have been in the workforce for a long time, and connected with them then. And then also throughout the year, we do different events. So soon we'll be in New York, meeting with alumni. There's a mixer happening in New York within the next month before we go for break and start traveling, so that we can get to know each other. And so that's how Alpha Biz has created sort of a system to make sure that we're constantly connected. And it's not even just driven by us, by our club. It's also driven by the alumni who reach out to us and say, like, hey, I want to make sure, I'm going to be in the city during this time. I want to make sure that I get to see people. Can we host a happy hour at this spot? And we'll, I'll come, and that way I can see current students and get to know them. So it's been the club, Alpha Biz has just created a nice system where we connect, and it happens organically. Definitely.
Yeah, so a related question that came through was essentially, Tola and Adisa, how do you feel your identity has been nurtured here at Wharton? Maybe we start with Tola. Mm-hmm.
Sure, that's a great question. So I identify as African, particularly Nigerian, and WASA has just been a great community for that. WASA is an interesting group because it consists of both Africans and people that are interested in working in Africa. And I think by just being surrounded by like-minded people, it's a place where we can have conversations about the continent, debate different controversial issues about the continent, and that's been something that's been very enlightening and very rewarding while I've been here. And I think the flip side of that is being, very confident in my identity and trying to bring that knowledge to Wharton. So with WASA, we've launched WASA Wednesdays. So every Wednesday we have speakers who are either from Africa or working on Africa come to Wharton, and those events are open to the entire Wharton body. And so we typically fill up classrooms and have really good African food and have people just learn about the exciting things that are happening in Africa. And I'm so excited to be able to do that at Wharton.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's through those dinners, through those conversations, through that time. That's sort of the best space in which I've been nurtured, or my identity has been nurtured. I'm across many clubs. I'm in Alpha Biz. I'm in the African American MBA Association. I'm in the Wharton Hispanic MBA Association. And so for me, being able to sort of jump between identities as a Dominican woman who was born in the Dominican Republic and raised in New York City, went to an all-women's college. I mean, there's so many pieces of my identity that sort of come together, and sometimes in my regular life clash. And at Wharton, it's just been so wonderfully received and supportive, and the community has been really supportive of nurturing sort of my spectrum and where I sort of exist. And that's been through the friendships that I've made, and also because Wharton is big, right? So we have 800 students per class, and so there's no shortage of diversity. There's no shortage of people who are coming from a ton of different backgrounds, whether international or grew up in the U.S. And so in that way, you sort of feel like because of your diversity, you fit in, and that's wonderful.
Awesome. So now to sort of take a step back from the diversity focus, a few questions came in that said essentially, what else are you involved in outside of diversity organizations? So maybe if we can start with Nam and then go over to Tola, speaking about other involvement here at Wharton.
Yeah, so obviously, diversity is a large part of all of our Wharton experiences, participating in our own, but across each other's as well. But professionally, I'm also in the consulting and tech club. I did dabble in consulting, as a lot of people will, coming into school, even though they knew what they were going in for. So even within those clubs, it's not just preparing resources for recruiting, but it's making you smarter about industry issues. For example, tech club's easier to talk about. They might bring in speakers about cybersecurity or about big data, all these things. It makes you more informed overall, but also helps you kind of hone in on your interests, but also you can speak more intelligently during your interviews. And that's true for consulting and any other clubs too. In addition to that, I'm also in Scotch and Whiskey, coffee club. Having come from Seattle this past summer, coffee club is huge for me. And then There's also another aspect where there are sporting clubs and everything, and I'm doing like flag football too, and you really get a chance to really round out your experience however you want to. As Adisa was saying, there's just hundreds of clubs out there for you. It's a matter of like what you really want to focus on and how do you not spread yourself thin, but also try new things, but also hone in on things that you can contribute and help others learn.
Sure, it's a good point. So my interests kind of outside of WJ and WASA are also focused on career as well as social. So on the career side, I'm actually one of the co-founders of Wharton's Agribusiness Club. I came from a previous life of doing a lot of agricultural development in Africa, and I was really happy to find other people on campus who had similar experiences just in the wide agricultural space, and so we've created a community for that. On social, I'm in the wine club, in the food club. Wine club is amazing. Wine club, yes, lots of free wine, lots of happy hours. Food club is great. We have student dinners where student chefs will cook dinner for their classmates, and it's a range of cuisines from Italian food to Mexican food, etc. And I've really enjoyed being part of the foodie community here at Wharton.
Great. So we're coming towards the end of the virtual event, but I would like to close it out with a question to Eric, and then we can move right over to Adisa. Essentially, what about the diverse community here is unique to Wharton? A lot of times in admissions, we speak about the Wharton difference. So what's the Wharton difference for you?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I think the Wharton difference in terms of diversity really has to do with we put our thoughts into action. And so this year we're actually developing, along with the administration, a whole new systematic curriculum. We're hoping to foster these opportunities for dialogue, but also look into training sessions so that we can train the next generation of advocates around diversity and inclusion. Wharton graduates go on to the upper echelons of so many different firms, and it's absolutely critical that we train them to further along these conversations in the workplace. I think just on a personal level, I've grown so much just throughout that process in terms of thinking about how can we engage different stakeholder groups, how can we bring in faculty and push this forward.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so I guess I'll close it up with just a little bit of a reflection on my own experience to date. So I couldn't be happier with my choice. There have been inspirational moments where I've made like very real connections with classmates, including the people that are sitting around me right now. And there have been really challenging moments where I'm talking with people with wildly different backgrounds and objectives, and I'm trying to sort of manage sort of how to listen and be engaged and be open to the newness of it all. So both ends of the spectrum and everything in between has really helped me grow and stretch. I hope everyone will find the same moments of inspiration from their business school experience. And so on behalf of everyone here and everyone at Wharton, we just want to thank you for watching.